Hey, welcome everybody to the Tom and James Friday podcast. And listen, before we get going, we want to remind you all that both of us are now on Rumble. So not just YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, but also on Rumble. You can find James there. You can find myself there. We'll get more into that in a few minutes. We also have our new website that is finally, it looks like it's going to be up this coming week, Monday, February 1st for our website. And James, I want to welcome you to say hi to everybody this fine Friday.
Hi, everybody, this fine Friday. Even though it's really Thursday and we're filming on Thursday.
Yeah, we kind of have all these different things we have to do. In fact, right when we're done here, we both have to go do another show and we're together, which is great. But we always kind of change the times, but we want to make sure everybody gets these messages on Friday. Friday at 1 o'clock, I believe they post. But listen, right. there's a lot going on in the news. It's been going on all week long. Pastor Mike McClure, Calvary Chapel up in San Jose, the court battle on Thursday. We have Biden, who has decided that John Kerry is a part of his national security team. Did you know that? National security team.
We saw it coming. It's ridiculous.
The climate guy for national security. I'm thinking this is bad news. And you and I have said this actually for a number of years now, that the big deal is going to be climate change. And while coronavirus was the big story of 2020, we were saying repeatedly, wait till 2021 comes, you're going to be hearing about climate. Mm-hmm. They're all saying climate chaos. It's the end of the world. And these climate laws are going to be used against us. They're going to. That's not what our program is going to be about today. There's tons of bad news. Oh, and then there's this one, James. Get this. Biden, let's see, here it is. Biden Energy Secretary nominee, jobs to be sacrificed for climate agenda. So there it is again with the climate. And then there's this one that's just rather, I guess we saw it coming, still terrible. San Francisco board votes to remove Lincoln from school names. So Lincoln. So I thought
some of the
Lincoln,
dumbest people on the face of the earth.
That's
they're going to remove. They're going to remove Lincoln. They're going to remove Washington. They're going to remove all kinds of people because none of them are acceptable to name the schools. What they don't realize is by simply making a name change, they're now going to put out something like $4 to $8 million to pay for uniforms, because everything is branded. These people are dumb. And this is why I've talked about this. I've said this before. If you live in San Francisco and you are a member of the body of Christ, you need to run for the school boards. Run for the school boards. Take over this nonsense. But
people
anyway, that's a whole other.
People are I'm getting all kinds of emails now from people saying, well, we've tried politics. Obviously it doesn't work. I mean, they're talking to me like they want to bring out their guns, but
here's a translation. Here's a translation, Tommy. Forgive me for saying this. We've tried politics and it doesn't work. No. Here's a translation. I'm too lazy to persevere and I don't want to work harder than the sensationalistic movement of the time. Shame on those people. Forgive me for saying that. Lazy Christians. That's what you call them.
So most of them told me that you're like their best friend to watch online too.
Well, then maybe they'll listen to me. Okay. Maybe they'll listen to me. Hey. Maybe they'll listen to me.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Okay, so I got. You're very entertaining. Because one thing I always count on is you're going to really encourage, exhort, and tick people off. All three of those things you're going to do every time. It's great. Okay, I got to ask you about the rapture. I taught a message last Sunday morning to my church on the rapture. You just did an update on the rapture. And I wanted to give our people some hope because there's a lot of bad news out there. But I got tons of questions. Pre-trib, is it pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib, pre-wrath? I taught from a pre-trib position, and I don't think other people are of the devil if they believe different than me. I have friends that have taught different. I remember Walter Martin. Remember Dr. Walter Martin?
Oh, sure.
He was post-trib.
Not anymore.
Yeah, he went to heaven. So that's a different story. But there's all those questions.
The great Walter Martin, by the way. You have to say the great Walter Martin.
Yeah,
that guy was amazing. Amazing.
Unbelievable. Absolutely.
I'm a huge fan of that guy.
Yeah, and he had a different view on the timing of the rapture. We're not saved based on our opinion on the timing of the rapture. We're saved by Christ. But I do want to address it because we get so many questions, and a lot of people are just ticked off because we believe pre-trib rapture. Okay, but I want to deal with this subject first, James, because I got this from so many different people. Cher from Alaska said, "I'm writing to you after following your ministry since last April." And then she said she's been watching you, myself, Jan Markell, a couple of others that we know. I'm a Christian. I grew up with zero understanding of anything related to Christ or the Bible. I'm a mother of 2 children. I see what's happening to humanity. The world's in a bad spot. I believe Christ will be taking us home soon. My question to you is, will all the children around the world be raptured too? My heart breaks for those children in modern day slavery, human trafficking. I pray every night for those children. That keeps me up at night. And then she went on a little bit more about that. So share then. This is from a young lady in France. Her name was Kathy. Hello, Kathy. And she asked, she said, you said you could email, we could email questions to you. So here's my question. And she says, I've watched films like Left Behind. And then she talked about children of unbelievers. What's going to happen to them? I believe that all babies and toddlers who do go to heaven, as they didn't actively yet choose between good and evil. They haven't reached the age of accountability. And then she made a few Bible passage quotes, but basically the questions I'm beginning have been along those lines, that also babies in the womb, what happens to them? So primarily just dealing with these 2 questions alone first, it's what happens to children that are of unsaved parents?
Okay, so in terms of the rapture, right? That's the question.
Yes,
okay,
in terms of the rapture.
I'm kind of curious to know, Tommy, what do you think about this? What's your view? Because I don't think me and you have ever talked about this. What's your idea on this with the children?
I don't have any ideas, James. No, I'm
what do you mean you don't have?
I'm kidding. Okay, so here's the way I look at it. When it comes to children, I believe that children I believe they're sanctified by their parents. When I look at it that way, so a child of a believer falls under that sanctification. I believe that's what Paul taught. So I believe children of believers are going to be raptured up into heaven. And that would include the baby in that womb. Here's the problem. When you have children of unbelievers, the Bible doesn't teach that. And when you look at things that happened in the Old Testament, listen, when God brought his judgment fell on all the people. When judgment came to Sodom and Gomorrah, there were children that would have lived there. And I know it's hard to hear. When judgment came in the days of Noah, there would have been children all over the earth. So that is really hard for people to hear. But I mean, how else? It would be, think of, I don't know how else to work this one out. And you might have another idea for me. Help me out.
No, I tend to believe that. And then people ask me, okay, well, what about a baby that's in the womb? What happens there? And that's kind of a tough one. That's one that I just kind of relegate to I don't know. And the reason why I say I leave that to I don't know is because when a baby is aborted by an ungodly mother, I believe that baby's in heaven. Right. That's just my belief.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say, well, will the baby be raptured? My tendency is to say no. I don't think so, but I don't know. It's very, very hard to tell. I can't be definitive about that because the Bible is very much silent on it. But I do carry the similar view as you with respect to parents sanctifying the children.
Yeah. So I know it's really hard for both of these questions. Their concern, and many others I have, is for the children of unbelievers. But I mean, all I have to look at is the Bible. And
yeah, but I do want to say this, because when we get this question a lot, I oftentimes get this question from grandmothers whose children are not walking with the Lord, and they're really concerned about their grandchildren, right? And so, you've got a mom who's ungodly. Grandma is super godly. She super loves the Lord. And the rapture happens while her grandchildren are of tender age, 3 years old, 5 years old. I happen to be of the persuasion that those grandchildren are going to be covered by the sanctification of the grandmother or the grandfather that's praying for them, right? I think because of that generational line and the covering that grandma puts into praying for that child who isn't at the age of accountability, I think that there's some hope there. I think it's very different from a whole line of family members that don't care and who cares, and they're all hating God and there is no context to God, then I think it's a different story, right? But I do, like, for the grandmas that are really concerned, I think it's a different picture.
Yeah. Okay. So, and with that, this is also me. There's some things that I can't say definitively.
Right.
I don't know
Correct.
exactly how God's going to do that. I do know that God is full of grace and mercy, and
Right.
And full of compassions. But so I look at how things worked out in the Old Testament, and we look to what the Bible does tell us is coming.
Right.
And so, but I wouldn't be definitive on with my answer in that, say this is absolute or dogmatic and this is the only way. There is no other thing that God has planned, because he actually doesn't tell us.
Right. And again, I mean, it's one of those things where I definitely would agree with you in this. I mean, I don't think you're looking at it incorrectly. I kind of feel the same way. But to the grandma who's godly and worried about her grandchildren who have parents that are ungodly, I would probably say that maybe those children will be covered by the Lord. But I don't know. It's very, like I said, it's very, very hard to draw a conclusion because the Bible is so silent. And I oftentimes refer people back to Romans chapter 1, where Romans in essence basically says that God is justified in every decision that he makes with respect to somebody's sanctification based on his justice, his perfect justice, the fact that he knows what people are doing and not doing. And I think that's kind of an important distinction.
Yeah. And also, James, I want to shift gears here for a second, but still staying with the rapture. Because there is, let's face it, there is really bizarre news we're getting every day. There's nothing that I think that totally surprises us. It's just a little bit more, you've got to be kidding me. However, we've been talking about these things, saying this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen on day one. This is what's going to happen in the first month. This is what's going to, so it was pretty obvious because we were told, the left kept telling us what they were going to do once Trump was gone.
Right.
So, we're watching it. They started talking about the impeachment back in November, if I remember correctly.
Right.
We're going to impeach Trump. So, it's not a surprise, but it is very discouraging. And so there is a little bit of hope that I think is needed, because let's face it, next week we're going to get more strange news. We've got this gender stuff that's coming out from everywhere. This stuff's just being crammed down everybody's throat. We're watching Israel escalate. The threats from Iran are increasing. And so we're looking, hey, what's going to happen next? Is Israel going to take out the nuke problem in Iran? I personally tend to believe that they probably are going to.
I hope so.
That problem. Yeah,
I hope so.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. So there's bad news everywhere, but interesting also because all these things point to, as Jesus said, when you see these things begin to take place, look up, your redemption draws near. So with that, the Bible really does teach something that we call the rapture. And I get pushback. The Bible doesn't really say it. Yes, the Bible really does say it. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, we shall all be changed. Not all will die, yet all will be changed. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, there will be the shout and the sound of a trumpet. And the dead in Christ and those who are alive and remain will be caught up together to meet the Lord there. So there's our bodies are going to have an instant change. Praise the Lord. But we are going to be caught up. And then I believe after we are caught up to meet the Lord in there, then judgment is going to come upon this earth. So,
yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. Second Thessalonians chapter 2 makes it very, very clear in verse 3 that the Antichrist can't be revealed until Christians have departed from this earth. That's the whole idea. So I also think you can make a very, very strong case. Did I say 2 Corinthians? I meant to say 2 Thessalonians.
You said 2 Thessalonians.
2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. I think is a primary text. I think is one of the most important texts in establishing it. How about when you get to the book of Revelation? In Revelation chapter 1, you get a code to understand the whole book, write down the things which were, the things which are, the things which are to come. And you get a very, very distinct, very, very beautiful perforation between each of these sections. Chapter 1 is very distinctly different from chapter 2 and 3, which is distinctly different from chapter 4 on. And it's interesting how the church isn't mentioned beyond that. We do hear the term saints being used, or we read the term saints being used later on in Revelation, but these are the saints that choose to receive the Lord after the rapture has taken place. Yeah. So it's very, very interesting, but you can really, really compartmentalize these time periods very easily by just simply looking at the scripture.
Yeah. So we have saints mentioned, but we don't have the church. We don't have the
Correct.
Body of Christ being mentioned. And you don't see the church going through the tribulation judgments.
That's right.
And that's the key. So with that, there are some schools of belief, like we mentioned early in the program, some people that are really smart, like Dr. Walter Martin and others that believe in different timing on the rapture. So right. With that, so you look at here, I'm going to throw a curveball in there. Okay. So when you look at the first 5 seal judgments, you have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and then you have the 5th seal, which is the saints that are under the altar, those who are martyred that are under the altar, and they cry out, "How much longer, Lord?" So it appears from the 5th seal that God says just a little while longer until the number of the others are also reached. But it appears that what God is saying is, okay, I'm not going to bring the judgment. There's just a little bit more time before I'm going to bring it, yet we've been to 5 seals by then. So that confuses some people. They look at that and they go, well, wait a minute. In fact, I had this question from somebody just the other day, and they asked me that specific question. And I said, well, aren't the seals also judgments? And he said, no. And I said, well, what are the trumpets and the bowls? Those are judgments. So I said, well, wait a minute. I went back and forth with them. But you look at it, there is some confusion there because of the way the first 5 seals develop. And then the 6th seal, you see the wrath of the Lamb.
Yeah. And so, but what people don't, so it's interesting because when you see some of this stuff happen, everybody thinks that the beginning of what we call the Great Tribulation has already happened, when in essence it hasn't, right? The Great Tribulation doesn't even start until the Antichrist sets himself up in the temple and demands to be worshiped, right? We see that, everybody says the Great Tribulation is that 7-year period, when in essence, it's the last 3.5-year period, right? People don't get the fact that for a good portion of this time, we're going to find peaceful circumstances. It's going to be, it's going to seem almost utopian. It's just going to be one of these things. It's like, wow, this is incredible. This is wonderful. It's very likely that the temple will either be completely rebuilt or start to be built during that time. Certainly will be built in time for the Antichrist to do what he's going to do at that 3.5-year mark. But this is going to be some like, wow, this can't get any better. This is incredible. I've never seen anything like this. This is wow, and that's going to be the whole idea. And then when he sets himself up to do this, then we're going to begin to see all of this craziness begin to happen. And I think that that's the thing that everybody has to understand and recognize, that people all of a sudden, see, let me just back up. The greatest mistake that people make oftentimes, and this is a big one, and by the way, it's significant, right? It's not like a small mistake, is when they read the Bible, okay, the greatest error that they make is they look at things in terms of what's going to happen or what happens chronologically, like immediately after. So, for example, if I read a story about one guy over here, then I read another story about that guy doing something else, I think it's back to back to back to back to back to back. And so when we get into eschatology, other than the times we're told there's a specific time period, everybody comes to the conclusion that they're going to all happen at the same time, when it doesn't, or one after the other. Like, for example, who said that the tribulation was going to take place immediately after the rapture happened? We don't know that, right? I mean, look, here's the timeline. If you actually want to look at a timeline, you've got the resurrection of the dead in Christ, right? That happens just before the rapture or simultaneously with the rapture, right? I mean, if you really want to play it that way, right? You've got in essence, what would be the judgment seat of Christ, the day of the Lord, the day of Christ. What I believe then is probably the Ezekiel 38 invasion. It's going to be, something like that. Then we're going to see that scene in Revelation chapter 4 and 5, that beautiful picture of heaven that we end up seeing. If you want to look at it chronologically, right? And then you get the seal judgments that start pretty much after that scene in heaven that we read about in Revelation. But who knows what that timeline is going to be? That scene that we see in heaven in Revelation chapter 4 and 5, how long is that going to be until we start to see the seal judgments? Like, for example, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. How long is that going to be? How long is it going to be till we see the four horsemen of the apocalypse from the time that we actually look at the scene in Revelation? There's no way of telling, right? But from those 4 horsemen, we know what happens, right? We see the rise of the final Antichrist, and then we see the covenant between the final Antichrist and the Jews, right? That's the 70th week of Daniel. When the 70th week, that's when that week starts. So you've already got seal judgments that have been laid out by the Lord, and the actual tribulation has not yet commenced.
Okay.
Because we know, according to Daniel 9:27, that the tribulation period commences when he makes strong those covenants.
Okay, so I got to throw this question out. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time to get into the whole thing. Just real quick, this is going to be a cliffhanger for everybody for next week. So are you saying then that the seal judgments could take place prior to the Daniel chapter 9 covenant?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
prior to, but not prior to the trip, not prior to the rapture.
And not prior to the rapture take place first, because we won't be here for the covenant. But the seal judgments could take place anytime before the covenant. So is it possible?
Well, one of the seal judgments have to take place before the covenant, because one of the seal judgments involves the revealing of the Antichrist, the final Antichrist.
You have the white horse.
Yes.
The first one.
Right.
But is that the reveal? Okay, so I got a lot more questions to ask you for next time, because now we get to the 6th seal, that's the wrath of the Lamb. So you would say that definitely begins. You could definitely see God's wrath at that point, because we know it. The Bible tells us so. Okay, so we're going to come back to this. Unfortunately, we got to stop here. I can't wait till next week, because I'm going to get so many questions on this and what you just said. I'm going to have a lot of fun, because
Daniel 9:27 is really what we understand to be the start of the 70th week of Daniel.
It is. And you just said some things about the seal judgments that I've looked at. I didn't know you thought like me.
It's not a hard thing. I mean, it's pretty obvious and in our face.
Yeah,
it's not a difficult thing.
Yeah, but let's face it. There's a lot of people that they think we're both nuts, but that's another show. Okay, we got to leave everybody, because we have to go do another show. So we're going to come back to this next week, because this is great. We're going to have a whole lot of fun next Friday.
How about this? How about the fact that the trumpet judgments can't begin until the 144,000 are sealed? Oh yeah, that makes a lot of people
That's
upset.
Also, that's chapter 7. And you don't see the trumpet judgments happen. This is going to be great. We're going to have so much fun next week. I can't wait. We're going to get a lot of questions. This is going to be terrific. Okay. All right, everybody. We got to go. James, you want to tell everybody where to find you?
Yes, you can get me at my YouTube channel, Calvary Chapel Signal Hill. I am on Instagram, James Cadiz. I'm on Rumble as James Cadiz. So those are some places you can go to find me.
Great. Same thing here. Rumble. Hope for our times on Rumble, and still on YouTube. But listen, I want to ask everybody, we have everything moving over to our new website. We're going to expect to be able to host our own videos there real soon. But right now, still Rumble and YouTube. And we'll be connecting with you everywhere we can. We have a lot more opportunities coming on the new website too. Listen, until next Friday, God bless. James, let's say goodbye, because we got to go do another show.
Goodbye, y'all.
Shalom, all y'all.
This was a more calm one today.
Yes, it was. That's because we didn't have crazy, bad things to talk about. Bye, everybody.
Hey, everyone, I want to remind you to be sure to go to Rumble and subscribe to our channel, Hope for Our Times. So here's the scoop. Here's the best way to do it. Go to our website, hopeforourtimes.com, and on the front of the website, front page, you're going to see Rumble. You click on that latest video right on the front page of my website, and we'll take you to Rumble. When you go to Rumble, you select under video, you put your cursor there. It'll give you a drop down for channels. Click on channels. Make sure you click on channels. And then when it goes to channels, then you just hit search and type in Hope for Our Times. It'll bring up all of the videos that we do. We're going to start posting everything there. In fact, we already started posting everything there. I beg you to go there, because here's the deal. We don't know how long we're going to be on YouTube. There's definitely a purge on the way, and we've already had some things censored. J.D. Frog has moved over everything to his own website, and we've got to do the same thing. Many of my friends were getting purged from YouTube, from Facebook, and elsewhere. So listen, we have almost 80,000 subscribers on YouTube. We don't have very many on Rumble. We need you to go over there. It's free to subscribe. But again, Hope for Our Times on Rumble. Go again to our website, hopeforourtimes.com. Front page, Rumble. Click on channels, and type in Hope for Our Times, and you will be there. And then you'll be able to subscribe. You'll get all of our videos. One more thing I want to update you on. We almost have our new website done. It's going to be absolutely terrific. I've seen the prototype. We're almost there. You're going to be super blessed. It's also going to have the ability for interaction between the entire prophecy community right on our website. So this is really, really, really cool what is coming. But listen, we live in interesting days, and we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that you are prepared for this world and what is coming until Jesus calls us home. I hope it's soon. But if not, let's be prepared. God bless you guys. See you on Rumble.